Good evening. Welcome to the May 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Grafton Planning Board is being conducted with both in-person and remote participation by board members and members of the public. Remote participation by the public for the public comment agenda item, the public hearings, and any other matter for which the board allows public participation will be via the Zoom raise hand feature. If you raise your hand on Zoom, you will be enabled at an appropriate point to enter the meeting via voice or video to make a comment or ask a question. In all cases, whether in person or remote, please identify yourself by name and address for the record. And as one or more board members are participating remotely, every vote will be taken by roll call. And please note that this meeting is being recorded as well as being broadcast live on the Grafton Community Television Government Channel. Also, please note that the Zoom link published in the agenda for this meeting that was posted last week is no longer the correct Zoom link for this meeting. The correct Zoom link can be found on the Planning Board's webpage and has been posted to various other places. Chris?
Yeah, we sent it out via the Planning Board subscribing page. It's updated on the web page as well. The agenda is the only place remaining that we were unable to update. It's a PDF. So I think that's our first Zoom glitch out of the 2 years we've been using it. So still a good track record, but unfortunately our first.
Yes. So let me begin the meeting with a roll call of the board members. Justin Wood.
Present.
Bob Hassinger.
I'm here.
Linda Hassinger.
Here.
Prabhu Venkatraman.
Here.
Dave Robbins is here. Associate Member Maura McCormack.
Present.
And staff here with us this evening, Town Planner Christopher McGoldrick
Present.
and Natalia Allward.
Present.
Excellent. We can now proceed with our agenda, the first agenda item being public input. If there is any member of the public who wishes to speak on a matter that is not already on the board's agenda for this evening, now would be the time to raise your hand and speak. I see no raised hands in the meeting room. I see no raised hands on Zoom, so we will proceed into our action items. First action item being an approval not required plan at Abbey Road / Carroll Road. This appears to be an adjustment of lot lines in a subdivision that the board approved not so very long ago.
Correct. Yeah. So the adjustments here are to lot 10R, 9R, and 8R, primarily to get the area requirements in terms of wetlands. They're required upland by the zoning bylaw to make them buildable lots. So that's the only change being proposed here.
Yes, and I will note for the record that this exhibits one of the board's more common complaints about A&R plans is that it's not easy to read the plan and understand what change is being proposed.
Correct.
Well, you know, Dave, I have a problem with this. There isn't an A&R plan approved at the moment for this subdivision. This is asking to approve a 10-lot A&R. We don't normally change lot lines. I've never seen this, and I've been here long enough to have seen most of what we do. This is saying that there is adequate access to those lots as it stands, and that they are lots now. And I don't understand how that interacts with subdivision requirements. I really have a problem with this one. They in the last few days, it looks like they laid down some pavement on that road, and they could argue that they have adequate access. And I don't know where this leaves us. I was hoping that this was all well understood, and we were going to have an explanation.
Yeah. So this is So this is an approved subdivision. It's been approved and endorsed by the board. The A&R is specifically for lots 10R, 9R, and 8R. So the changes are in terms of the lines in between and adjusting very slightly in terms of the wetlands in order to meet the upland requirements of the zoning bylaw. There's no other change from the endorsed plans in this case.
I do not see that though on the plan. I see a 10 lot plan. And we're being asked to approve a 10 lot A&R. And I'm not, unless, and I don't see why they need an A&R to change the lot lines. I've never seen that done that I can recall. I've been told that they can do that as long as they stay within, the requirements.
Would this be something that might more commonly be seen as a revised subdivision plan?
Yes. A minor revision of a definitive subdivision plan. And that is what I think we've seen. I'm going to vote against this unless we have a lot better explanation than we have now. I don't see a way that you can even put it off, get input from either the applicant or the council. But I think this is an exposure that until I understand, I can't support it.
Is there a reason why this wasn't submitted as a modification of the definitive plan?
I mean, this is the plan as received from the applicant. I did on Friday try to get in touch with the land surveyor to discuss this, but he was away and I wasn't able to reach him today either. So we do have 20 days to act on it
We have 20 days starting when?
from May 10th.
And it is now May 23rd. 13 days into our 20 days. If we deny the A&R, that takes care of the deadline, and they can always come back with another one if that's really the right thing to do. If we approve it and it turns out to be something other than benign, we're stuck. That's why I say, I think my only choice is deny it and let them sort it out and get it right, or else come in with an explanation that's satisfactory. I think it's an exposure. You're going to have a private road with 10 buildable lots on it, 10 recorded lots, recordable lots.
Yeah, with that question hanging in the air and no satisfactory resolution, I think, this is an odd case. As I said, I think I would have expected this to have been submitted as a modification of the definitive subdivision plan. And it would have been, I think it would have been clearly a minor modification, and I don't see any obstacle to the board approving something like that. This, I think without council's explanation of why this would be valid, I have to agree with Bob. I'm not sure that this is the right way to do this. All right, let me put it this, I'm not sure that it is a legally acceptable way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, so the two criteria that you have to find against in the A&R is that it doesn't have adequate access or frontage. So if the Abbey Road is determined by the board to not be adequate frontage in the existing condition.
Abbey Road is not currently a public way.
Doesn't have to be a public way.
Could be private.
Does it, Chris?
No, so it could be private, but it does need to be adequate access or frontage.
Okay.
So
I move that we deny this or lack of adequate access.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion of the motion? Hearing none. Vote by roll call. Justin?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabu,
Aye.
and Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously.
Okay. I assume Chris will talk to them and get it sorted out. So there won't be two.
Okay.
I would guess that this can be sorted out in time for the next meeting.
I will do my
Yeah.
best.
There aren't, the trouble is, if we didn't do that, the next meeting isn't for 3 weeks. We'd have to do a special meeting and it'd have to be solved in just a couple of days.
In more than 2 days and less than 7.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
and get it recorded. What, on a weekend perhaps?
No, I think the action that we just voted is probably the most expeditious path forward. Basically, just drop this back in the applicant's lap, and between the applicant and staff and council here, we ought to be able to come back at the next meeting with a clear path towards getting this taken care of. I mean,
Speaking of council, are we going to be having a meeting with council soon?
I might suggest we can take that up as part of the staff report, just what the status of that is.
I don't have an update on that, but I will reach out to Ginny, and we're probably getting close to a point where we can schedule an executive session.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our,
The point is, maybe if there is any question in this, both things could be done at the same time, or on the same evening.
yeah, keep that in mind. All right, our next action item is for the planning board to appoint a representative to the Economic Development Commission. The select board recently revised the membership of the EDC to include a planning board member and a zoning board member. So tonight is our opportunity for a planning board member to volunteer for this assignment. I see a hand raised from Prabu.
I volunteer.
Prabu is volunteering.
I move we appoint Prabhu.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. We'll put it to a vote. Justin?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Linda?
aye.
Prabu?
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. You could have voted
Thank
against
you.
your own. just to have fun, you could have voted against Prabu. All right, Prabu is now the planning board's official representative on the Economic Development Commission. I know this has been a topic area of interest to you, Prabu, so I rather expected you to volunteer for this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I also think it's something I don't want to go on any committee now because I only have 1 year left. Whoever goes on it really wants to be on it for a while, since you're reelected now again. That's it. You're perfect.
You got
Thank you.
3 years, 3 whole years.
All right, so let's move on to our next action item. We've got a pile of action items tonight. Our next one is a approval of a covenant at 11 Wheeler Road, Stillwater Estates, a subdivision that we also approved relatively recently and has been the subject of some other discussions. But this is we don't often see a covenant used as an alternative to a performance bond, but this is, I think, as far as I can tell, this is a pretty standard covenant.
Correct. So, the draft covenant was provided. I did send this off to town council, and as you noted, this is, normally not the process that we use, but it is a path forward. I did reach out to our bond counsel, and they provided some draft or recommendations in terms of the insurance certificate. And criteria that should be on that. We do need some adjustments from the insurance certificate that was provided to meet those recommendations. In addition, I haven't been able to get coordinate a response from town council as to the content of the covenant, so we're still awaiting that review. I did leave that on the agenda because I didn't know if we were able to get those things together in time.
Yeah. So as of right now, without a reading from town council, there's no action required by the board.
Correct. Yeah. But at the next meeting, we should have it resolved.
This is pretty unusual, so it might be good for us to get a little input on how it works, and how the town and the purchasers in the subdivision are protected and so on, because it is different than like the town just having a bond, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's why we were looking for council review to
Right.
make sure that.
But I'm looking for me to hear. I want to know.
Yep. So with that in mind, and as this we don't see this that often. Between getting some input from town council, it would be helpful to have, and maybe I know we have two of these on the agenda tonight, and I think they're both in the same situation, awaiting advice from council. But between now and the next meeting, could perhaps, Chris, you together with town council prepare a little explanation along the lines of what Bob is looking for, that this is how these things work, and how they're different from a performance bond, but how the town's interests are protected through the covenant.
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Okay. Shall I move to table this,
I'm gonna say,
or you can just?
yeah, let's just say we'll table it for further action. There is a question from the audience here. Can you come up to the podium?
Bradley Wright, trustee of Wright Realty Trust. I own Stillwater Estates. I hear everything you're saying. Is it possible for us to at least start clearing the land, stumping, doing site work, stockpiling earth while we work out the covenant for the next meeting?
Yeah, I believe, so the limited site work that was approved, we did the Heritage Tree site walk and the initial kind of pre-construction meeting. So in terms of the clearing and the stumping, that's fine. I think in terms of road work, we need to hold off until we can get the
Right.
the bond.
It's just so we could get started, that's all.
Yep.
And, okay, thank you.
Yep. Just for everybody's information, the board's next meeting is, as was noted earlier, 3 weeks from tonight, June 13th. And this seems like something we ought to be able to get this resolved so that the board can approve this at that meeting. And that was the only action, or the only item with regard to Stillwater Estates was the covenant, and we will expect to be able to wrap that up at the next meeting. Next action item: supplemental level of support for the Central Build-Out Analysis and Scenario Planning Pilot from CMRPC. Can you explain what that is and where we're at with that, Chris?
Yep. Yeah. So moving right along through these items. So the supplemental letter of support, CMRPC reached out to Grafton as well as a few other surrounding communities, specifically looking for us to be pilot communities for a build-out analysis that they'll be doing, and kind of scenario planning. I think the work that they're proposing will fit really well with some of the work that we'll be doing for the master plan, and kind of help to work with some of that stuff. So what I did is I issued a letter of support, and I'd be asking for, in terms of timeline, they needed it before this meeting, so I issued it on behalf of the planning department. But I'm looking for a supplemental letter from the board just to kind of echo that. There is a local match that will be required. They're estimating 15 hours, and they'll be able to utilize meetings with the planning board and with staff to meet that local requirement. So there wouldn't be actually any out-of-pocket expense other than the staff hours, and I think we'll be well positioned to provide that as well.
So moved.
Second.
Moved
Motion needed?
Yeah. Moved and seconded that the board issue a letter of supplemental letter of support as a companion to the letter of support from the planning department. I will just note as discussion on the motion that, I was very interested in reading about this, particularly because it's a little bit more than your traditional build-out analysis, which typically looks at your current zoning and what's left to be developed under the current zoning, and it's pretty much limited to that. This, on the other hand, looks like it's going to be looking at several essentially alternative zoning scenarios where under different zoning, what could the build out look like? And that's a topic that I was very interested in exploring as part of the master plan. So I think I was very pleased to see this coming along. As you said, Chris, I think this meshes very well with what we need to do for the master plan.
Did I mentioned someplace, maybe it was at our last meeting that up at CMRPC, I pushed that they among the alternative scenarios is trying to deal with what 40B could do. Under 40B, who knows how many units could be developed. I'm not sure how they get a handle on it, but I want it. I want them to do the best they can.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about alternative scenarios, the number of alternative possibilities is, for all practical purposes, infinite. And so you have to kind of pick and choose, however many alternative scenarios they're going to look at. I got the impression it was like maybe 3 or so. But selection of those alternatives is going to be interesting. Trying to cover bases like what you just said, Bob, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, 40B is where, that's with us now. That's part of our current build out future.
Yes.
And as far as I can tell, most of the subdivision, most of the development is being done under 40B, either friendly or not, either LIP or ordinary. So I think it's important to get as much as we can on that, as much understanding as we can.
Any other discussion of the motion? Hearing none. Justin?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Prabhu?
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. Excellent. Alrighty, we now have another action item, item E, determination of substantial use or construction at 109 Creeper Hill Road. So what's the story there?
Yep, so for this, we met with the applicant discussing the work that's been done and the following schedule to be completed. In that discussion, we were discussing whether or not the work that has been completed meets the criteria of substantial use. Given the timeline that we had, I suggested that we could meet with the board informally as a discussion item to discuss, give the board an update of where they are and where they're going. And then, the board could make that determination. It still allows, if the board finds that it's not substantial enough, and they would like to see a continuation, we can then address that at the next upcoming meeting and still be within the timeline of the special permit that was granted. So with that, I know David is on the call here, so if the chair would like, I can turn it over to him.
Yeah, please do.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, no, happy to be here. A lot has changed in a year. Many of you may have read my little cover letter, but essentially, we've gone from, what was effectively a not very legal, not very well-run transfer station, and completely converted it to now where we're selling between 8 and 10 trucks of animal feed every week. And that's all from rejected human grade food, which that's a pretty awesome accomplishment in this last year. And, we continue powering forward. We're expanding the volumes that our facility is able to take in. And we have done some construction on the special permit project, but not all of it, right? And so last year, various delays because of global chain stuff and just the world worldwide economic and commodities situation led us to just delay it into the spring of this year / summer this year. And we have done some work on that property, and those are outlined in that letter. I'll briefly cover those, and then essentially ask the question which Chris very much verbalized it very accurately, which is like, hey, does this count? Yes or no, right? And so what we have done to date is demolish the remains of an old building. We have abated the asbestos that was there, and there was a lot of it. We've completed a bunch of third-party tests, including the soil testing. We did the pre-construction meeting. We removed the old foundation. We found some nice surprises beneath that were buried there, including something that looked like a bomb shelter, and a bunch of, not very legally buried food that was completely unearthed by surprise. And as far as the building permit itself goes, we have finalized our structural, our civil, electrical, mechanical, and fire protection designs. So, stamped, PE stamped. And we are applying for the permit, this week, next week. And so that's the current status, right? And so the special condition, or rather the condition of the special permit says, hey, you have a year before you need to give us an update type thing. And the specific word in there is substantial use or construction. And so I pose the question, right, which is, does this count as special use or construction? And if yes, great. And if not, then I will seek an extension. And as Chris mentioned, we have enough time to do that. And my preference, of course, is we think, this project is well underway, and we're continuing to do that work, as evidenced by, if you just drive down Creeper Hill Road, you will see that difference.
So basically, the question before the board is, do we consider this to be substantial use in compliance with the special permit?
Yeah, and then if that specific condition would then be satisfied. So.
Yeah.
This is where people have been having the problems about the smell.
The facility has had some odor. Yes. Short answer, yes. We had some odors escape. These are largely under control now, or at least much, much more so. We've worked with the DEP as well to make sure that the control measures are in place. Yes.
Because I thought I saw not too long ago in social media some complaints again. So it was like, if we don't fix it this time, we're going to stop trying. Some comment like that. Where are we? What do you think? Tell us how you're doing. Tell us what.
Yeah. So no surprise that what we're doing is from a physics point of view, not easy, right? Our ambition is to take in food waste of a wide variety and make animal feed, and we cannot do that at the expense of the public, comfort. The health was never at risk, but the comfort was, right? We in November last year, we had attempted a deodorizer that didn't work, and there's a set of reasons for why not. We spec'd a new one, vetted it much more diligently, and actually just completed the installation thereof this a week ago. So far, we don't have all the most data points, right? But we are confident that it will work. And the reason being that this one is water-based, actually atomizes a spray of water containing, deodorizing molecules, as opposed to the old system, which was vapor-based. There was no water, and was, if you will, overcome by the amount of odorous chemicals that we're producing out of our stacks. Everything that we've done with this new deodorizer has it so that again, this water-based system is able to handle that load. And we know how to select ingredients in a careful way so that if there still is issues, what not to do and how to mitigate further.
Now, are those deodorizers in? How much connection do they have to what we're talking about tonight?
None.
So, Chris, substantial use
or construction.
You've destructed, but have you constructed?
Well, I mean, we've excavated. That's the first part of it, right? We didn't build any walls, if you mean. We didn't pour any concrete yet.
Might make people happy to have a chance to come in and talk about it like we just did, but I'm okay with that you're making progress.
I appreciate that.
So-
I'll move that the board finds that substantial use has been commenced on this project.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Well, just take the motion as is. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Justin,
Aye.
Bob,
aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabu,
Aye.
and Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. We look forward to your continued success there, and hopefully all will be well.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you, everybody.
They didn't find any dead bodies.
Hmm.
Some people were joking about that, but no, that has not happened.
Not
Not yet,
lately.
anyway.
Hey.
Find any of it. Okay,
All righty.
we might be able to do the F the same as we did the other covenant.
Yeah, we've got a couple more action items. Let's see if we can take care of those. Next item, item F, is a approval and endorsement of plans and a covenant. So there's two parts here. One is the endorsement of the plans. The other is the covenant. If I remember correctly, the covenant needs to be done before we can endorse the plans.
So yes and no. So the covenant has already been approved in this case. We did add it on there to call attention to it. That the previous endorsed plans had the covenant with some a previous version that wasn't finalized. We've added the finalized version, as well as in this case the phasing plan that the board recently approved.
Yeah.
But I did want to call, that was a question that came up, was if we should add the finalized covenant signed as it was signed and approved by the board.
Yeah, and this in this case, the covenant had been approved already by town council.
And signed, correct, yeah.
Okay.
So it was my recommendation that we should, while we're re-recording the plans or re-endorsing, that we should
So-
add in the
Right,
finalized
so
version.
that's, yeah, so
for
in this case, what the action required from the board is to endorse the plans and the plan and the final version of the covenant to be recorded.
Correct.
So moved.
I assume this means we will have plans at some point that we actually have to sign.
Yeah, I think we could have a little bit of discussion on that, because we had some questions of how that should be kind of printed, just logistics wise for the board to sign, which they would prefer. So primarily what we were looking at is if the board would like the plan set for each of the sheets, including what was previously endorsed, do we want to re-sign each of those or just the modified plan pages?
That's right, we did go through and sign all those at one point. But yeah, so what we have, so
I'm all for the modified pages only.
yeah,
My motion
All
was
right.
what Bob
Do we need to take a vote on a motion?
So we would need a second and
yeah.
All right, second.
All right, moved and seconded that the board endorse the modified pages for the plans. That's basically it. Discussion of the motion?
It is on this computer.
Hearing none. Justin,
Aye.
Bob,
Sharp here.
Yeah, well, it's sharp there too.
Well, I got it in my. This.
where was I?
Bob.
Justin, Bob, Linda.
I haven't voted yet. Aye.
I remember asking for a vote from Bob. Okay, Bob votes aye. Linda
Aye.
and Prabhu
Aye.
and Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously.
yeah, so we'll have the Mylars brought into the office. Once those are printed, I'll send an email out and the members can stop by at their convenience to sign.
Okay. All right. Next, we have at the same project a determination of minor modification regarding putting up a sales trailer on one of the lots as a temporary sales trailer to provide potential buyers with a place to conduct business prior to there being any houses on the land.
Correct. Yeah, and I'll let the applicant, if they want to add to that.
Sure. Thanks, Chris, and thank you to the board. And again, we appreciate the town's continued support and coordination on this project as we move forward with the Village Institute Road community. And as we're doing that and advancing the community, we want to provide the potential homeowners with a safe and accessible location to meet with our team on site to consider the purchase of a new home. So to help accommodate that, we are looking to, we're requesting that the town approve the installation of our temporary sales trailer on lot 46, which is the lot that that fronts on Institute Road, while the project is in its early stages, so we can have that presence on site. The expectation is that the trailer site would be completed soon after the trees are cleared from the lot, while the cross-country sewer line and the drainage basins are being constructed during phase 2. And then this would allow us to kind of provide prospective buyers with a safe location off of Institute Road to come visit the site and meet our representatives. And then once the subdivision roadway is built and the model home is available, we will relocate all this activity from the temporary sales trailer to the model home. As you can see on that plan, thanks for Chris or Natalia, whoever's running that, for popping that up. The temporary trailer is located on lot 46. It's accessed via a driveway that is located in the same location as the home that is proposed on that eventually as part of the later phases in the project, with a reclaimed asphalt parking area, handicap accessibility. And we also included some photos of other temporary sales trailers that we've used on other projects, just as an example. And so with that, I again, appreciate the consideration. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from the board?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have some concern over this lot being utilized directly on Institute Road, right near where there's a high mark on Institute Road before Institute Road is redone as part of this project. It's, I feel like sight lines will probably be pretty bad there. It makes a substantial use of this thing that's more commercial in nature than residential in nature. So there's some concerns I have. I think I'll leave it brief for the moment.
Bob?
So I'm sorry, do you want me to address that, Justin? Because I understand exactly what you're saying. Or you wait for other comments?
I'll defer to the chair on that.
Yeah, go ahead. You might as well address it now while it's.
All right. So the access location off Institute Road is at the top of that incline on Institute Road coming from East Street. And so we went out there and we took video, and we have some photos from the location of where that the access would be. Looking to the right, if you will, towards the East Street, there's no concern whatsoever. It's fairly level, and you have view pretty much to the UIS facility up Institute. Looking down towards the left, you have good visibility, and that visibility will be improved because as part of that early work we'll be clearing some of those trees off of the Institute Road, abutting the pavement. So that would certainly help clear some of that sight line. We met with DPW and Chris and the tree warden out on site last week, and we talked through that, the clearing of those trees and a significant number of the trees that do clog up some of that sight line along Institute Road in that area will be removed as part of that initial process. Additionally, we met with Chris and Jeff Walsh from Graves Engineering to talk about the temporary traffic control plan. And one of the elements that we did discuss was some early action items, and included in those early action items were some advanced warning signs. Both sides of this area, well, not just this area, but the project in its entirety, but it would include 2 sets of advanced warning signs both north and south of the entrances of the project along Institute Road. So closer up towards the DYS driveway along Institute towards East Street, and then down Institute Road towards Westboro Road. So there would additionally be signage, as there would be construction going on during this time, alerting motorists that there's activity, in the area.
Okay, Bob.
Have you had a trailer, anything like this in any other project in Grafton? You've had other projects, right?
Correct. Pulte Homes has. My colleague Mark Mastriani is on the call, and I think he has more experience with that. Thanks, Mark.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So, Bob, I've actually been around for Oakmont, Maple Vale, Hilltop, all of them, and I, off the top of my head, I cannot remember whether we had a temporary sales trailer at those sites. I'd have to go back and look at those sites.
I never remember having been asked before for one. I did know. I don't know whether you checked the meeting materials in the last hour or two, but there was a comment posted fairly well into the afternoon, I think, from someone who objects to this.
Yeah, we saw the comment letter. This isn't about making money or not anything like that. This is a practice that Pulte uses to help projects be successful and get off on the right foot and get started on the right foot and to generate buyers. So instead of having all this construction and no presence on site, what we like to do is get a sales team and put a trailer on site in a nice location, safe, visible location where they can start to meet with projects and develop a lead list and really kick off the sales process right, so that when you are able to build homes, you're not building homes that are sitting there and empty and specs. Like, you're building homes because you have people that have already put them under agreement, and you're building the homes the way they customize them rather than at a spec level. And it's really a powerful tool for us to be successful. And we do this often. Honestly, it's been so long since I think Hilltop was the last one, but that was a long time ago. So I really honestly don't remember if we did it Hilltop, but that was back in 2004, 2005. Maple Vale and Oakmont were before that.
Yeah.
But this is something we've been doing for the last decade, and really, really helps and gets us started. And it's in keeping. It's a residential community. It's an accessory use, and basically it allows us to get the sales team on the site, get started, get organized until the model home is ready, which is a typical residential process.
Chris, is the zoning officer okay with this?
I'm not sure if he's been consulted on that.
Yeah. I think I saw Prabhu's hand up.
Yes, Dave. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents on this. From my construction days, we would have a sales office, a relationship office, especially for residential units, and keep that separate from the site office for safety reasons. That there would be a site office. In the absence of that, in the absence of a sales office, prospective customers, buyers would be directed to that. That's why we ended up having those. I feel this is needed, subject to Bob's point about the zoning officer's approval.
Yeah, I can't say that I remember seeing a sales trailer like this in Grafton in the years I've been around, but I do recall having seen it other places. It is sometimes, it's, I guess it's best said, it's probably not an uncommon practice. but it may be a while since if we've ever seen one in Grafton.
I'll say
Well, if it won't get in the way too much, maybe we should get a little input from the zoning officer just to be sure. I don't know. The building inspector, who happens to be the same guy, is probably going to be involved. It's putting up a building. It's like more than a tent. He goes out for tents. So
Yep. I mean, part of the reason this is the way this is before us is it's being proposed.
I'm in the way.
As a minor modification, and if everybody's comfortable with the idea of it sounds like we're basically comfortable with it, but we would like some assurance from the zoning enforcement officer's perspective as to.
I am advised that the building inspector is in the waiting room.
Then maybe we can get an answer right now.
And Mr. Chair, while we're waiting for Mr. Berger, we do have a public comment with their hand raised on Zoom. Just to let you know.
Yes, this is not a public hearing.
Correct.
It's the board's discretion as to whether or not to accept public comments during this discussion.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Again, my video's off. I have seen trailers used in Toll Brothers. I've seen them used in Hilltop for Pulte and also in Lordville and Forest Hills. The one that you did show on the screen, that's what they used in Forest Hills. In Pulte and in Toll Brothers, they used more of a conventional trailer with a set of steers going up to it.
Okay. Good. In that case, I think it's okay. Oh, wait a minute. You have a comment, don't you, Dave?
Yes. I think we're beginning to run short of time, but if the commenter can be brief, although I think he's lowered his hand. Oh, there we go. Mr. Carroll.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I had submitted some comments and sort of echoes what the board is deliberating. And the gist of it was if they wanted a trailer to, do construction review plans, engineering, fine, place that in the back. If they wanted to perform sales and do sales operations, my feeling is they can conduct all the things that they were discussing. Go rent a storefront and do it in a retail setting. Where we're talking about off Institute, you brought up all the points of the sight lines, right? And, this is, in my mind, almost a commercial or is a commercial enterprise. So I guess I don't understand how this could be permitted or allowed use.
Well, that's what I wanted the zoning officer to tell me.
Yep.
So it sounds like there's a precedent, right?
Yes. That's what it
We've done
sounds
this.
like.
So maybe the board would consider, some hours of operation and what can and cannot be done, whether they, put banners out, balloons, all that kind of thing on weekends, right? When they're doing showings, put some restrictions on it, right? Where it's right off Institute Road.
Yep. That sort of thing, I think by and large falls under the sign regulations. And the sign regulations would apply here. There is a provision in the sign bylaw, the sign section of the bylaw, for a temporary sign for, during the development of a subdivision. That's it's a whole separate thing. And I think, anything like that displays, I mean, hours of operation, that's not part of signs. That's something that, is probably worth us contemplating here, what proposed hours of operations are and whether we should do something to deal with that. Again, this is what's before us is a request for a minor modification. So it's not, this isn't a public hearing. This isn't if the board so chose, the board could say, well, this is more than a minor modification, and started, advertise the public hearing process and the whole bit. This is a little bit less formal. I don't know if the applicant has anything that they want. I don't recall seeing in the application materials what the proposed hours of operation were going to be, but I might guess it would be I don't know. I'm not even sure what to guess.
Mr. Chairman, I could answer that one easily.
Yes.
So, our sales team works 7 days a week, so it's Monday through Sunday, but they work during daytime hours. So the sales trailer would be open from 9 to 5. Maybe if it's a busy day, maybe people would hang around a little longer until 6. But our sales team works normal daytime hours. 9 to 6 is probably overly long. I think it's actually 10 to 5, to be honest. But 9 to 6 I'd be comfortable on both ends. 7 days a week, but standard hours. Again, this isn't a construction trailer where people review plans and construction folks come in and out. And this is intended to be along Institute Road so that the public can meet with the sales team and review floor plans or review lots, review the sales. It's a sales process, and you really don't want them driving, into the construction site and through the construction site. That's not as safe as locating a trailer at the entrance and in a high visible location that's properly signed. And, that's what we propose to do. It's not a commercial enterprise. It's really no different than any other residential subdivision in town that, when they have homes for sale, there's, folks come in and that's and there's a sales process, and that's what we're just trying to get started here. It's temporary. I think Essick in his letter put 1 year, hopefully from the date of an approval. And that really it's there just long enough for us to construct that first 500 feet of roadway we previously discussed, get started building a model home through the winter, and then everything gets complete, landscaped in the spring. Hopefully we would get an occupancy permit for the model home, and then the temporary trailer would go away. That's the proposal.
Any other comments, Justin?
I'm ready to make a motion if the chair will have it.
Yeah.
I have a question or two. Of course, it can still be discussion, but somebody remind me, at some point we put in the rule about the project sign that Dave mentioned. I don't remember, I seem to remember approving at least one of those, but I don't remember whether the rule in general now is that we approve it. If that were to be a sign, if that were to be a way to get a sign on this, I'd be interested in whether they can just do it or whether we'd be involved to try to look at the concerns that Bob Carroll has. The other thing is, other than that, that's a residential lot or whatever, 20 or 40. And therefore, I think it's only allowed, a 2 square foot sign?
During the construction of a residential subdivision, one freestanding sign no greater than 12 square feet in size may be erected on the premises at the entrance to said development to identify the project, including the name of the developer, builder, contractor, engineer, and/or sales agent. Such sign shall not be erected until construction has commenced and shall be removed within 7 days of completion of construction. That, I think, just requires a sign permit issued by the inspector of buildings.
Yeah. There's a conflict there between, is it on the trailer or is it on the entrance to the subdivision? In any case, other than that, the sign limitations are pretty severe.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, well, we've looked at the sign laws enough for, okay. Well, anyway, I think Justin was making a motion.
I move that we find this is a minor modification and direct staff to issue the appropriate documentation.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion of the motion? Justin?
Yep. I just want to call out that I do see on the proposed plan that there is a temporary two-sided sales sign with uplighting on for this drill. I believe someone can correct me that our approval of the modification does not indicate necessarily an approval of that sign if it conflicts with our sign bylaw.
Right. I think
Correct.
that's,
Yeah, there's a standard condition in the subdivision approval decision that states that the signage on plans is not approved and has to meet the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
What I'll do after this, proceeds either way, I can take a look at that sign in the context of the regulation that was cited tonight and see what's in the zoning bylaw and see if there's any minor adjustments that need to be
right.
made.
I think it's probably fair to say that the motion approving this as a minor, finding that this is a minor modification does not change any conditions, any other conditions regarding signs. Should not be construed as approving the specific sign.
That's my intent of the motion, yes.
Consistent with all other approvals that we normally give, which explicitly do not approve signs.
Yes, and we should note, I think we still have the lights have to be turned off after a half hour after the business closes.
Yeah, and one would want to consult the relevant sections of the sign bylaw to determine whether lighting as proposed here is even allowable. There's a whole nother section of the sign bylaw that deals with lighting,
including the turning them off.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that would all be covered once they apply for the proper permits for the trailer and the sign, which are two separate permits.
Yep. Exactly. The point we're making here is that our decision here should not be interpreted as approving any signs. That's up to you, Mr. Berger.
I understand.
All right. Any other discussion of the motion? Hearing none. Justin.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Prabhu.
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. Chris will get the paperwork in motion and we'll follow up in all other necessary respects with whoever.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, one last action item and then we can move on to some public hearings. We have before us a notice of intention to sell two lots at 173 and 183 Upton Street, intention to withdraw these two lots from Chapter 61B. As we should all remember, the town has the right of first refusal to purchase these lots, and the process that we go through in the town, among other things, asks the planning board for an opinion on whether the town should purchase these lots. various other boards and other organizations are also asked for their input. So we are but one of several voices in this regard. Anything to say with sort of introduction and describing what's going on here, Chris?
Yeah, so this is an interesting kind of piece of land. It abuts the Misco Brook parcel there. I'm actually going to pull up on the GIS just to give a little bit of context here.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I'll note that the parcel of land as a whole was previously 2 lots, and it was divided by means of an A&R into 4 separate lots, 2 of which are the subject of this Chapter 61B withdrawal.
Correct. Yeah. So, and actually, our GIS
does
doesn't
not
show
yet reflect that
that
A&R.
split that was done fairly recently. But this is the Misco Brook that goes along the back of the property, and it's this parcel and essentially a piece of land over here as well. So it's predominantly woodlands. There is a fairly multifamily development kind of across the street, or a little kitty corner to it. It is along 140 as well. So I thought it's interesting in kind of initial discussions at a staff level. I was looking at this and it's been brought to my attention. I think there may be some conservation and CPC interest in this parcel, specifically looking at Misco Brook and the preservation of that. I do also note, being closely abutting the multifamily development here, that there may be potential to, depending upon the land that's acquired, there may be potential to actually do some additional multifamily development through an RFP, and the RFP would give adequate control to hopefully adjust the scale of the development and to also help to preserve the Misco Brook. So I've been kind of trying to get some temperature readings from the kind of boards and the staff that would be involved in that, kind of floating the idea. That's my thought on it, that you may be able to get some housing. I know that's been something that the Affordable Housing Trust is really looking to get a parcel that's adequate for developing new units, and doing that in a way that specifically preserves the Misco Brook. There may be a way to do both at the same time and develop a project that is a lot of moving parcels. But that's kind of my 2 cents on it. If there is interest, I haven't been able to get any solid feedback in terms of if there's an appetite for something like that. But
two points I'll note on this. One is that immediately to the north of this, there are 4 parcels that the town acquired 3 years ago to basically to protect and preserve, going from there on up to Stowe Road. So that's one point of information. The other point of information I'll note is that these 2 parcels are among the last remaining privately owned parcels around Silver Lake and this portion of Misco Brook. Between the town and the land trust, all the other land around Silver Lake is fully protected. And so for the purpose of sort of completing that circle, with maybe the possibility of multiple uses on some portion of this property, it seems like that is potentially advantageous for the town to acquire. I know it's been a goal of some of the folks in town to try to complete the circle of protection around Silver Lake.
I'd like to hear what the land trust and those folks have to say, but in the meantime, I'm interested if we could highlight how these 2 parcels relate to the other ones that you were just talking about, Dave. that we did acquire.
Right. Those, Chris has outlined one of those in blue up there, I think.
Yeah, I want to see all the whole
Can you,
story.
I don't know if you can.
You can highlight more than one at a time. I
Yeah,
think.
I just want just making sure it's the right one.
Okay.
Yes. It abuts them.
Now, which ones are which now? The blue one is in,
The blue
Well-
and the blue and the orange are all Grafton town owned.
we have, yeah.
The green is one of the lots included in this, and then the other is down here. I can pull up the plans to show that, but it's abutting this.
Well, it ought to be, is it not that whole parcel that you're using the GIS, so it ought to know where the property lines are.
Yeah, the GIS has not yet been updated to reflect the A&R that was done approximately 1 year ago to divide those 2 lots into 4 lots.
And then, just to say as well, the land trust owns across the road, right behind that multifamily development, 2 lots that are significant when combined.
Okay. I like what Chris outlined.
Yeah, so I think, would it be fair to say that the planning board would like to make a recommendation that the town exercise its option to acquire these 2 lots?
So moved.
Second.
And as I said, the select board makes the decision on that. They will hear from the land trust, they will hear from the Conservation Commission, and I think of several other entities. I think the Board of Assessors also is asked to weigh in. I don't remember who all. So ours is one of several voices.
And I'd like us to be saying that the sort of thing, the creative proposition that Chris was outlining would be very good to include as
Right.
part of our encouragement on this recommendation.
The board's recommendation will include a recommendation to consider options along the lines that Chris discussed with us.
Yes, that's in that motion.
Yes.
There was a motion.
I heard that in the motion. I'm sure I did. Is there any other discussion of the motion?
And it was seconded.
Yes.
It is now.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
There is a hand being raised by Rob Aberg if the chair wishes to recognize that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing from Rob. I suspect Rob is probably going to be in favor of this acquisition as well.
Don't assume anything. We got to hear from him.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, you could surprise us.
Yeah, enough surprises from me lately. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Rob Aberg, 43 South Street. So this is for the first 2 of the 4 lots on the A&R. I just wanted to add a little bit of information. Maybe it's almost a surprise. The protection of Silver Lake as a water supply, both for the Grafton Beach and the Upton well field down the river, just past William Street, was of interest in the 2007 Open Space and Recreation Plan. Did we continue that in the current OSNRP, Dave? Remember?
We probably did. I don't know that it may not have been quite as explicit as it was in the old one. I'd have to look that up. But I know
was an extra data point was the water supply protection and the Silver Lake water quality protection.
Yeah.
But the Land Trust Board did vote last Thursday, voted 8-0 in favor of offering to hold a CR on this if it was deemed something that the town was going to purchase for open space, that we could hold a conservation restriction for it as required by CPA funding if it comes to that. So that's extra information as well. And that the Land Trust Board did vote 8-0 in favor of supporting this property as conservation land.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any yeah, there's a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on the motion?
It was even seconded.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, we'll put it to a vote. Justin.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Prabhu.
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Alrighty, it's now 7:30. Well, it's been 7:30 for a while. We have several public hearings on our agenda here. We'll begin with a new public hearing at 10 Pigeon Hill Drive. I guess we should get the legal notice read.
Yes. Pursuant to sections 1.5.7 and 1.3.3 of the Town of Grafton zoning bylaws, the planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 23rd, 2022, commencing at 7:30 p.m. in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, to consider an application for a special permit and site plan approval request for a booster pump station replacement, including the construction of new above-ground pump station located at 10 Pigeon Hill Drive, shown on Grafton Assessor's Map 75, Lot 4A. Said property is located in a low-density residential R40 zoning district. The applicant owner is the Grafton Water District. Copies of the application plan, a copy of the application plan is available for public inspection at the planning department during regular business hours or on the Town of Grafton website at www.graftonmass.gov on the Planning Department Development Projects webpage.
Alrighty.
Just to briefly say, Mr. Chair, I just want to say out loud that I do live just over 500 feet from the borderline of this property, and the impact of this project will just impact my neighborhood in a sense. I do feel that I have no ethical concerns with regards to this, but if I want to say out loud, if anyone feels contrary, I'll happily step aside, but otherwise I'll fill out the affidavit.
Considering your potential appearance of conflict of interest
Yes,
as having been
I will fill that affidavit.
consider that your obligation is to make us aware of the potential conflict. It's
Yes.
not, this would not be perceived as an actual conflict of interest.
Correct.
I believe I see the representative of the Water District here who might be willing to speak to this project, to tell us what's going on. Whichever you're more comfortable with, yes.
Matt Pearson, now the business manager of the Grafton Water District. Previously the manager for 32 years, and we have Dave Erickson in the back. He's now in capacity as water superintendent. This may be the last time you see me here. I don't see any more projects in the future, and I just want to thank the board for all we've worked together in the last 32 years that I've been here. We also have Tom Mahana, Daniel Textera, and Tim Grace from Ty and Bond zooming in somewhere. We built a underground booster station at our Pigeon Hill site where our two tanks are almost about 30 years ago to supply about 80 homes on Pigeon Hill. The homes there, which includes the nursing home at the top, is almost above the gradient of our tank. And as you know, water can't go uphill unless it's helped. So they used to have mini booster stations in all their homes, and DEP doesn't prefer that. So we put in an underground booster station roughly 30 years ago. It's reached its lifespan. It also has some conflicts with confined entry. It's underground. It's a steel tank, basically with all the pumping mechanisms in it. So it's kind of a hazard to entry. It also does not have a backup generator. This new facility will be above ground, a lot more safer. We'll also have backup generators, so when the people do lose power on Pigeon Hill, which unfortunately is about a half a dozen times a year, just seems to be one of those areas, yeah. And so now we'll have backup power so they can have adequate pressure and safe water to drink during outages. The proposal is a package plant. It's about 23 by 10. Comes all together, dropped on a foundation. Everything's inside. The generator is outside, but it's in an insulated space. We have these same generators at East Street, Worcester Street Pump Station, Trinity Ave. Trinity Ave has houses within 150 feet from the generator, and we have no complaints from any of those people. So if anybody has any questions about the generator, they've been proven to be good. And the other thing is, when they're running, it's good because usually you lost power, so now you have water. So in the past you didn't. We do exercise them on a regular basis for about a half hour just to make sure they work, and that's usually either a weekly or monthly basis. The project, we're hoping to do it this fall, go to bid this summer after we get approvals, hopefully. And we own about 4 acres up there, so there's plenty of space. It's actually going to be located as you can see on the plan, not right in anybody's backyard. I'm quite far. With the leaves off, some abutters could probably see it. We've been very fortunate to have great abutters up there. We built a concrete tank a few years ago. We're going to be spray painting and cleaning the steel tank that's up there, and we've had wonderful neighbors and want to keep that relationship. And that's about all I got. We did have some comments from Graves, which they got in this morning, I believe, and we responded to those and updated the plans. So everything, as far as I know, has been received and in order. So.
Yeah, I just just as a follow up on that, to comment on Graves, particularly when I looked at the files this morning, I saw the Graves review in, and it looked like it was kind of nitpicky stuff.
Well,
I mean, it's
gotta find
stuff
something.
that has been it's nothing really substantive, and I wasn't sure whether you guys were going to be able to respond to it as quickly as you did, but by the end of the day, your response then. The only thing left to cover that base is for Graves to follow up and say, yeah, they've addressed all our comments. So that's mostly what I noticed about this. I noticed it looks like you're bringing in a new gas line to fuel the generator.
Yes, we have right now. We'll use that to supply the generator. There is gas on Pigeon Hill, and we'll also be running a new main down our access way to the building, which will zone off the area.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was about to say. New gas line, new water main.
Right. Presently, believe it or not, I don't know if you know Mr. Coates. He's our direct abutter. He can throw a pebble to our tank. The old water main runs right through his front yard. We have an easement because there used to be a wooden tank on that hill actually. So we will be abandoning that. It's just not great to have it in somebody's front lawn in case it ever does break. It's a hazard. So that's part of the project too. So there's a lot of positives to this project as well as the funding. Be through the district has some cash that'll be paid for a portion of it, and then we're going to borrow some of the rest of it. So,
any questions, comments for the board? Bob,
I'm interested in noise when we talk about generators, and in this case, when we talk about a pump that I guess works more or less all the time. People are sometimes concerned about noise.
Yeah, the pumps are very small. They're inside of the building. You can't hear them. They're electric pumps. The generator is in an insulated cabinet, not for heating or not so it won't freeze. It does act as that, but it's a sound deadening device. Literally, a diesel truck is probably louder than what comes out of this. It's more like a hum and a whisper. Like I said, we have them at every other site that we have and have never had complaints. And Trinity Ave, which was built 3 years ago, I mean, that's right in the middle of a subdivision. So,
yeah. And
how many homes or some measure like that are these pumps capable of supplying?
We there's about 60 to 80 homes on top of the hill, and then there's a fire pump. There's 3 pumps, and they run in series. They lad league, and then if there's a fire, they all come on to provide enough fire protection for the area. So it is very important.
Yeah.
Now, that gives maybe a little handle on how big the pumps really are. If the pumps were filling the tanks, that might and therefore supplying water for the the whole area that Pigeon Hills applies.
These pumps don't actually fill the tank. We actually suction off of the existing main. So the pumps, I can pick one up myself.
Okay.
They're not that big. They're 10, 15 horsepower pumps, and they're not like some massive pump you see in a treatment plant.
Okay.
And for trade-off context, just for my own personal experience, when there is power outages, if they're for a prolonged period of time, it's not uncommon for like my house or neighboring houses to comment that they have very low water pressure or nearly none to just to speak of for any use.
Right.
So,
And we have the nursing home is considered a high hazard to us.
Yeah.
And this is a health issue for them if they're fully staffed and running. If we had a long-term outage with no backup generator, we'd be responsible for moving those people, and that's certainly something that this situation makes it feasible to do over what we've had in the past.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions, comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? I have one hand raised in the back of the room. If you could come forward and stand at the podium or whatever.
My name is Paul Perderio. I live at 4 Pigeon Hill Drive, so I'm one of the abutters, kind of this side there. I personally think it's great because every time we lose power, I don't have any water pressure, so I'm fine with this. But I do have a few questions for the abutter behind, because he had to leave. He had to leave 2 minutes ago.
Sorry about
So I had a
that.
couple questions.
And I can answer those through him if you prefer.
Yes,
Is that good?
please do.
Yep.
Okay. First question, the application says start in fall of 22 and finish in winter of 24. Really think it's going to take that long?
No, that must be a typo. It should be 6 to 8 month project.
Starting
If that, yeah.
starting this fall?
Hopefully this fall, yeah. If we
Okay.
can get approvals and get the bid and award the bid.
Okay. He's concerned about the construction noises when it's actually happening, so he's looking for the hours of operation for the.
We only operate Monday through Friday, usually 7:30 to 4. What's interesting about this is it's no more than really house construction. We're gonna.
It's a little shed. is
It's
what it looks like.
it's 11 by 23, and that's a package unit that will be dropped. So there's some trenching for the water main, the gas main, some electrical work. It's really probably more like a home with less banging of hammers and nails on roofs because it's going to be dropped.
Yeah.
And
It
again,
just-
It's going to be a prefab unit.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, we go out of our way to make sure that the butters are taken
Yeah,
care
and
of.
just to add on that, in the special permit, we normally include limits on hours of operation.
Yep.
Okay.
I think in particular that we say no construction activities on Sundays or holidays.
Right.
Or over, we don't want you doing construction at 3 a.m. or anything like that.
Understood.
And I think that's completely compatible with what Matt just said.
Yeah.
Right. His last question was about how many trees you think could be clearing back there.
If you saw, did you see the site plan where the building was?
I did see the site plan.
If you drive in our access road, it takes a sharp turn, and the site will be right there in that corner. So probably, if you were a radius outside of that corner, probably 80 feet, like that.
Okay. I'm sure he's wondering how many trees are going to be left between.
Which one is he? If you
He's-
come in our entrance
He's directly.
to the right?
He's right directly behind where the pump house is going to be.
Okay, so there's probably still a 50-foot buffer at least. If it becomes a concern with him, in the future, if he doesn't like it, we'd plant some shrubs or something, so.
Okay.
I don't see that to be a case, believe it or not, once it's done.
Okay. Those are his questions. The only thing I would add, just personally, is somebody brought up the noise, and I think it's an interesting question. So when you do prefab the unit, if you could put some extra insulation in the walls, probably would be pretty helpful to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're little pumps, so it's not going to be
Yeah,
not going to make a lot of noise.
Right, I can guarantee you won't hear them.
Yeah.
All right. I have a hand raised on Zoom, and then I have a hand raised here in the
Okay,
room.
thank
So
you.
Let's go to our Zoom participant next, Brian Cohen. Yeah, if you're trying to talk, Brian, you appear to be on mute.
Am I unmuted now?
Much better. Thanks.
All right, sorry about that. So yeah, he was speaking for me. I want to thank my neighbor for doing that. I had to run out to pick up my kid. This is Brian Cohen, 8 Pigeon Hill Drive. the two biggest concerns were the noise, which I think you've answered just fine, and I think the other concern that we had were the trees. But it sounds like 8 foot out is not too bad. There's a fair amount of trees in that area. And the other concern we had that was answered was the construction 7 to 4 during the Monday through Friday is good. We were concerned about weekend and a lot of construction workers kind of interrupting our weekend time, but it doesn't sound like there's a problem with that. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you. Next.
My name is Phil Holohan. I live at 12 Pigeon Hill, which is contiguous directly. We've been there for 29 years, and we've had a very good relationship with the Water District and certainly with Matt. I'm here because, number one, I don't know how to read plans necessarily, but I think there's some questions that we have that even if you could read the plans, you can't really tell. The highest one probably is the view. What are we going to be looking at from our property? And they're going to be trees taken down, and like Matt said, maybe during the summer you won't be able to see it, but what are you going to see in the winter? And I guess you said you could would agree to plant trees if it was an issue or something, and as long as that's the case, that's fine, because you can't really see that from looking at the plans.
Yeah. So,
right?
So you're to the left of our entranceway downhill?
South.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you know, if the planning board wants to put language in there about, you know, visual aspects of shade, you know, tree shading or whatever, shrubberies, I mean, I don't see that it's going to be an issue. I mean, it is pretty far off the road. And again, you know, we're great neighbors, and if there is a concern, we'd address that.
Yeah, and what you're going to see is basically a shed. It's gonna
It looks like a small house. Not a house, but it's a shed. It's only 8 feet. It doesn't have to have high ceilings. All these pumps are floor mounted. So probably the height of the building is probably not more than 12 feet. I don't know if you have I don't have it in front of me. Forget what it has a low pitch on the roof so it keeps the visual sighting down.
Our last page.
And we would even entertain, you know, picking out the colors if that's a concern. But we
It's
usually
more the
go with a nice earth tone of like beige or brown, something, you know, tan.
The sound issue is the second issue we have, but you guys have already addressed that, I think. There is a provision in there that talks about chemical storage and says there's no current intention to store any chemicals. That obviously begs the question of, well, if there were chemicals, what would they be? And maybe that's subject for some other deliberation, but.
No, I can answer that. DEP requires us to have an injection point for chlorine in case there is a bacteria issue within that, which they call that a separate zone of the system, because we can't treat that on the other side of the booster station in normal ways. If we ever had a bacteria problem on the hill, we could inject chlorine there. So we have a spare chemical pump, a barrel. There's no chemicals there at the time, but it's basically just chlorine bleach that you use in a pool, and it's in very small quantities, 20, 30 gallons, if we needed it. We don't even store it there, and we've never had that problem on the hill yet. So, but it is a requirement from DEP to have it there, so in an emergency, you're not fumbling around looking for equipment it's already there, ready to go. So that's what that would be about.
The other issue related to the project is, when we first moved in, that was a dirt path to get back there, as you know better than me. Then it was paved over. Once it was paved over, we got a lot more runoff. Now, it's also been raining a lot more, right? At least I've noticed it's been raining a lot more, and that's probably not going to change. And I don't know if there's anything you can do in the course of this project to try to divert that or something.
You know, in the project, and again, if you don't read plans, you don't know, but we have a retention basin that's going to collect a lot of the runoff.
That's for the building, I think.
Right, but some of that coming down the driveway is going to be deterred into that.
It will be.
So then it has time to settle and dissipate slowly instead of, you know, rushing. But
so you think that'll take care of the runoff, any runoff associated with the road?
We can look at that when time comes, because we will be repaving that road. So at that time, we can, you know, make sure that your concerns are addressed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the other thing, which is not directly related to the project, but it's not going to get any better with this. There's a couple of gates.
Yep.
And if the gates are locked, then nobody can get back in there. If they're not locked, which frankly they are often unlocked, somebody could get back in there and do all sorts of mischief, particularly if they had a car. And we have seen some people that probably shouldn't be there in there, and I know Matt's tried, and
That's typically human error. You know, somebody goes in there, they're working in there all day. They think the other guy's locking the gate when they leave, and then it's left open, and then they usually call and say, "Hey, your gate's open."
I think once
or you close it yourself.
Somebody got locked in.
That's even better.
But
it is our habit for safety and security to keep our gates closed, but they do get left open sometimes.
So as long as we can address all of those things, they're at the margin. These guys are good neighbors, and we lose power too. And you know, I have a generator that I can start, but that's not going to help my water. So, but anyway, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments, questions, either from the board or from the public?
Move we close the hearing, direct staff to prepare a draft decision, taking into consideration everything that we have heard, all the information we have gathered.
So
Chris?
So just because I think we are waiting for one final procedural document from Graves, the final sign off, we may want to keep the hearing open just to include that in the record.
And I'll add to that I do want to include my actual written potential conflict disclosure form.
All right, so to cover those procedural bases, it would be preferable to continue the hearing to June 13th while directing staff to begin preparing our draft decision, such that we'll be able to close the hearing and complete our work on the decision on June 13th. So
yeah,
this does require the applicant to make a request for the continuation.
Yeah, I'll continue to the 13th. It's just, we've done this before. It's just procedural, so everything gets done at once, and I have no problem with that. So.
All right. So do I take it that the motion is to grant the applicant's to be received written request to continue this hearing to June 13th and to direct staff to begin drafting a decision?
Oh, all right.
I'll second that.
Come on, Bob. You can't beat up on me on my last planning board hearing.
All right.
When are you going to get water up here for us?
Yeah, let's get that.
You're breaking up, Bob. I can't hear you.
What's that?
Well, you're breaking up.
Perfect
Oh,
opportunity.
I see. You better get it in before they finish rebuilding.
The town is going to be rebuilding George Hill Road. Perfect opportunity to drop the water line in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got some wooden pipe we'll put up.
All right. Any discussion on the motion to continue? Hearing none. Justin?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Prabhu?
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. We'll wrap this up on the 13th.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. And ladies.
Hey.
Just
And thank you, everybody, for participating. Chris?
I'll address it later.
Alrighty, we now have a public hearing on a request for a scenic road permit at 125 George Hill Road.
Pursuant to Article 24 of the General Bylaws of the Town of Grafton and Scenic Road Regulations, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 23rd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in Conference Room A at the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Massachusetts, to consider an application for a scenic road permit for alterations to a stone wall located at 125 George Hill Road and shown as Grafton Assessor's Map 95, Lot 1. Said property is located in an agricultural residential A zoning district. The applicant owner is Ron Armanwin. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And Monica Arnani Ween. Anybody have a clue? Trustee 125 George Hill Real Estate Trust. Copies of the application are available for public inspection on the Town of Grafton website at www.graftonmass.gov, on the Planning Department Development Projects webpage. This will be a hybrid meeting conducted in person and remotely. See grafton.gov planning.
Full disclosure, I live on George Hill Road, but I am well over 1,000 feet away from the property in question. I drive past there frequently, and I can testify to this current state of the stone wall. But
Linda and I live on George Hill Road too, but it's more like a mile for us. And we hadn't been down that way for a while. Been some changes here at 125.
yes, a lot of activity taking place there. So,
Yep. So, so the current proposal here is to repair the existing stone wall that is on the scenic road, utilizing the existing stones, not adding any additional stones. Sorry, any additional stones would be harvested from the property, and the wall to remain in the same location and the same height. They did provide some photos of the existing conditions, which show the property as is and the need for repair. I believe the applicant's on the call as well. Yes.
Yep. Ron Ernenwein has the hand raised and the attendees list.
I am the owner of this property, and we're redoing this house for my daughter to reside here. I actually live at 111 George Hill Road. So as you can see, we're doing a lot of work here. Yeah. Our plan from the very beginning, working with an architect, was to create a space here that pays homage to the area and to keep the quintessential New England farm feel. So rather than doing a plain old addition for a master suite, we made it look like a barn, and that's going to be a red barn with the white farmhouse and the wraparound porch. So this is going to very much look like it belonged here from the 18th century. And, part of this is, the road appeal in this stone wall, which, is in very, very poor condition. So it would be our intention to, rebuild it as it were, and make it look like it belongs there, using the native stone and keeping, any supporting concrete behind the wall. So it looks like a drywall as they were done, hundreds of years ago. So that is what we're thinking. I think there's about 175 feet of it that we're going to rebuild. And the only change is going to be the wall will extend slightly beyond the existing driveway, as we're going to utilize the second driveway on the property as the main entrance. So we're going to try to tier that and raise the grade just slightly so that it has better aesthetic from the road.
Is there a break in the wall where the second drive goes?
Yes, there always has been.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I am curious. I saw you had a hearing with ZBA where I managed to find a little bit of information. it looks like you've basically taken down the house that was there and left the foundation. But something I saw looked like what you were going to put back on the foundation was going to look pretty much the same. Is that true?
No, actually, the original house, which part of it was built in the 1850s, is remained completely intact. We gutted it. We stripped the asbestos siding off, and we're rebuilding that. But we're also, even on the interior, trying to keep some of the architectural features that were present with the original house, and keeping that the whole theme of the 18th century New England farmhouse. And that part of the house is actually post and beam construction, so we're going to try and keep that exposed where we can, and keep it original as possible, but functional and safe. So there's a lot of things the architect and the engineer have done. We've added in some bracing and supports and hold downs and all the things to make it to the current code. But that's very much the original house.
Because when you look at it, boy, it looks like new construction. It's got the whatever that green board.
The zip system, yeah, that was required from the architect in order to meet today's wind shear codes. So we had to resheathe the whole outside to get the wind ratings. And the siding that we're going to use is also going to mimic the original type siding. So from the road, it's a synthetic board and batten. So the barn section will be red and the house will be white. It'll have some of that vertical siding to make it look, like the authentic board and batten. We spent a lot of time on the details on this to make it look authentic.
Okay, just it was a surprise. I had trouble finding it because I was looking for the old house with a porch around it. And we're just there right now. Okay, that's fine.
I've been watching.
That's a big barn you're building, or a barnish building.
Yep, I'd been watching the barn go up. It took a little while before I could see that it was going to be a barn. It wasn't clear what it was until you started putting the frame up, and then the house apparently has good bones. You just have to resheathe it and do some work with it. But
so there's a lot of history in that house, and I thought it would be a shame to tear it down. So that's why we went this option.
Yeah. Is there living space above the barn garage? The second level on that.
Yeah, that's a master suite and an office, and it's kind of oversized, but we reverse engineered it. We started with we wanted the outside aesthetics to look like, and every New England farmhouse has a barn attached to it, and so we wanted to make that look like a barn and not like a master suite that was just plopped next to it. So we started with the overall structure and kind of went backwards onto how to lay out the floor plan to make sense.
Okay, well, good. I'm happy.
Anything else from the board? Any comments from the public? Questions? If there's nothing else, then maybe a motion to close the hearing and direct staff to draft a decision would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Justin.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Prabhu.
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. The draft decision should be ready for the board to vote on in the next meeting. And thank you, Ron, for taking the time to share with us all you're doing and answer the questions we had that weren't strictly relevant to the stone wall.
My pleasure. Thank you all for your time.
I'll look forward to seeing this project completed.
You'll have to come over for a tour. We've got a lot of good plans.
Sounds great. Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Moving on, we have another new public hearing for a request for a special permit and site plan approval at 41 and 43 North Main Street.
Pursuant to sections 1.5.7 and 1.3.3 of the Town of Grafton zoning bylaws, the planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 23rd, 2022, commencing at 7:30 p.m. in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, to consider an application for a special permit and site plan approval request for medical and dental offices with retail optometry use on property located at 41 and 43 North Main Street, shown on as Grafton Assessor's Map 27, lots 78 and 79. The property is located in a neighborhood business NB zoning district. The applicant is Forges Eye Care. And the owner is Point House Properties LLC. A copy of the application plan is available for public inspection at the planning department during regular business hours or on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton.com.gov. Okay. This is someone else's turn next time.
Okay. So, where do we start?
Yeah, so this is primarily a change in use application for special permit. One of the major questions that comes up with that all the time is how does that affect parking? The applicant has included a parking table which shows that the proposed parking will be in compliance with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. And that's, I believe the applicant is also on the call, if they'd like to add to that.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, this is Attorney Todd Broder. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much for taking the time. Yeah, this is an existing facility. This was Barcode Direct's headquarters for maybe the last 15 years or so. And the applicant in this case intends to reuse the existing building, existing parking, the existing driveway, and do interior changes to the building, put the optometry office in this particular location. The operator currently has a Worcester location and a Shrewsbury location, and this would be in place of the Shrewsbury location. Looking forward to bringing this business to town. There are approximately 8 employees that would service this facility, and this is kind of regular business hours operations. They do on one occasion or at their Worcester office currently they go 8:30 to 6 p.m. on Thursday nights, but otherwise it's generally 8:30 to 4, traditional kind of business hour operations. So again, just reusing the existing building and the existing site improvements and change of use as Chris described. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, just to retweet, to make sure I've heard everything. There are no changes to the building footprint. The only changes to the building are interior. No changes to the parking lot layout. The parking is sufficient for the proposed use. And literally, it's a change in use. The new proposed use is consistent with the zoning bylaw, so no issue there. Any questions or comments from the board?
So the plan that Chris has up looks to be 41 North Main Street. The project on our agenda says 41 and 43. What is going to be taking place at 43?
Nothing. That will remain as is.
Yes, just to note, there used to be a structure at 43 North Main Street. There no longer is.
Okay. Our
correct
GIS shows the structure still. So I didn't remember one, but I figured I'd ask. Okay.
Actually, the assessor's map, or whatever, the map that shows who needs to be contacted or notified seemed to show actually 2 buildings there. What it occurs to me, I'm sure that it's nothing that's going to happen, but it's too bad you can't use the driveway at the in the parcel that's the next one over, because it has, believe it or not, a traffic light to help people get out. Very few people know that there's a traffic light on it, along with all the rest of the lights in that intersection. That's a little bit of a tough place for traffic, but no, not a problem.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? With no further questions or comments or no issues remaining to be resolved, perhaps a motion to close the public hearing and direct staff to draft a decision would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Justin.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Prabhu.
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. I would expect a draft decision to be ready for approval by the board on June 13th.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Tricky spot for traffic, so I hope the business does well.
All right. Our last public hearing is a request for modification of the special permit and site plan approval at 135 Westboro Road.
The Grafton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 23rd, 2022, commencing at 7:30 p.m. in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, to consider an application for modification of a special permit to include the use of marijuana product manufacturing on property located at 135 Westboro Road and shown as Grafton Assessor's Map 13, Lot 2. Said property is located in an office light industrial OLI zoning district. The applicant owner is CBJD Holdings LLC. A copy of the application plan is available for public inspection at the planning department during regular business hours or on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton/mass.gov on the Planning Department and Development Projects webpage.
All right. Now let's get this one off the ground here. What's going on here?
So this project was recently before the board for some of the exterior modifications, including the porch. And I had mentioned that they would be coming in for this approval as well. So this is for the essentially an interior adjustment where it's a multi-tenant commercial business. They have an existing approval for essentially the marijuana distribution or dispensary, and so this would be to remove one of the retail uses that were on the site under the previous approval and add marijuana manufacturer use to the existing approval. The applicant has gone through the necessary steps, amending the host community agreement, as well as approvals with the CCC for this use.
Yeah. So basically, we're repurposing a portion of the interior space. The existing special permit is for a marijuana retailer, and we're adding a marijuana manufacturing as a second use under that.
Correct.
Any questions or comments from the board? I see the applicant is here on the screen. Do you want to add anything?
First, I just want to formally introduce myself. My name is Colonel Booth. I am one of the co-owners of CBJD Holdings, which is the property owner, and I am also the owner of Hayes of Grafton, which is the marijuana retail store and product manufacturing license applicant. Essentially, the purpose of this change is to add additional uses to the space. I will be creating various edibles and beverage type products for marijuana marijuana infused beverages and edibles. The advantage of this is, one, I would be using additional space in the building, and I would be paying an additional 3% community impact fee to the town. So essentially, I'd be adding a second marijuana business, which would generate some additional funds in the community impact fee to the town. I think that use is a lot more, in our opinion anyway, a lot more useful of the space. It's about 1,500 square feet, and we could generate a few $1 million a year in revenue, opposed to renting the space out to a barber shop or a salon for not much money. So I think this is more of it's a benefit to us financially, and it's also a benefit to the town as well. And it would also include an additional 10 full-time jobs, of which the town residents of the town of Grafton, I will be hiring priority to residents. So essentially, just wanted to introduce myself and just give you an overview of what we're trying to do with this additional space.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? Justin.
I had one question.
Go ahead,
So just go ahead.
Prabhu, go ahead. You haven't spoken as much today.
It's very late for me today. So when you say the separate entity, to Mr. Booth here, is that a fourth retail unit, pot shop in town? I didn't quite get that part.
No, it would be the same entity that would own both licenses. So I would be one of the 3 retail entities, retail dispensaries in town, and I would be I believe the only product manufacturer in town.
There was someone who was going to manufacture going in up in. Actually, there is someone who is moving toward manufacturing up in Centec, and there was another one, but I don't know what became of them. But yeah, and what is it? MJ's whatever is building, working on manufacturing, growing in the back part of the building. But anyway, yeah, we went to the public meeting that he has to have and said hi. We were the only ones there.
Good to see you again, Bob.
Hi. I'm just interested in, with the amount of business you're talking about, that means you're selling more or less wholesaling to customers, other retail businesses in other places.
Correct. So the goal is, of the almost 300 dispensaries in the state, my goal is to have our product that we create from Grafton in as many dispensaries across the state.
Okay.
Justin?
So, not knowing as much about the edibles process, just to ask it, is there any byproducts of the manufacturing process that might impact the other tenants in that? There's another tenant in there that's not in the cannabis industry, from my understanding. Would any byproducts like odor or airborne type things, not only leave the building, but also be impactful to the other tenants?
No. So currently there are 2 other tenants, Wicked, Twisted Pretzel, and Pecorino Wine and Cheese.
Yes.
And so we wouldn't be adding any additional odors that the store wouldn't have. So essentially, I'll be buying bulk marijuana distillate, and marijuana distillate essentially is an oil form of the cannabis plant, and it has no smell or taste or any type of odors associated with it. You may smell some baked cookies and donuts and some other things we're going to be doing cannabis infused. So I think we're going to be adding some refreshing smells to the area.
Yeah. I was thinking that you were going to be working with flour also.
Not really in product manufacturing. Primarily, it's distillate oil that we use. The flour that we will be buying will be packaging. We'll be buying flour in bulk and packaging it in retail sizes for the store, for the retail dispensary.
Oh, isn't there a smell involved with that?
Very minor. You know, the smell that's typically associated with cannabis is when the plant is in the flowering stage. That's when it releases a very pungent, skunky type odor. But after the product is harvested and dried, a lot of the terpenes, which are responsible for the odors and the flavors, they kind of diminish once the product is dried.
Okay. I think people are anxious to see some more of our marijuana businesses to actually get open.
Right.
Any idea when you'll actually be open for the store, at least for the store?
So we're still awaiting the official license transfer from the CCC of the license that I acquired from Resonate. That process has been very, very slow. We're hoping to have the license in June. And once I acquire the license, then my additional funding will be released, and then I can finish the construction. So I would hope to have the store open by the end of the summer, sometime in the fall, I would say at the very latest.
Tough business getting started.
It's very difficult. It's very hard to raise funds because we can't get traditional financing. So it's very, very challenging to open any type of marijuana business in the state.
Well, I'm happy.
Anything else?
This seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yep. So perhaps the usual motion?
Yes, I move that we close the public hearing and direct staff to draft a decision.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Justin?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Prabu?
Aye.
And Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. Would expect a draft decision to be ready for the board to approve on June 13th.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming in and staying with us as late as it is.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, so that completes all of our public hearings, and now we can go back to the items we have so far skipped on the agenda. Starting with discussion item A concept plan for Farnhamsville Acres at 61 Maple Street.
Good evening.
So we last saw you a while back on this parcel of property with a very different plan.
Yes, good evening. Chris, could you call up the plan? Yeah. Good evening. I'm Norman Hill from Land Planning. With me tonight is Stephen David. Wants to develop this property. And when we last met, we had a proposal in front of you for 42 homes. And we had houses proposed in the industrial zone. Now what we'd like to show to you is a proposal to build 10 new homes, all of them in the residential zone. So the only thing we're going to do in the industrial zone is what's there now as a farm. So we're proposing a 22-acre parcel for the farm, which encompasses all of the industrial land. No houses in that industrial land, but 10 new houses going down the hill to the left. Now, this road, we're really here to talk about the length of this road, because you have a regulation that says 500 feet. And this road will be 980 feet. But you also in your regulations, you say that if we can make it so that it's advantageous to the environment and to the community, then the board has the power to waive that 500-foot dead end length. So we're proposing to open space, dedicate permanently almost 6 acres of land going down on the right-hand side. There are a lot of wetlands in that area. It's a sensitive area, so find a mechanism to make sure that that 6 acres never gets developed ever. So we're here tonight to ask the board, get a temperature how the board feels about this proposal, where we're basically going to dedicate almost 6 acres of land open space, and hopefully getting exchange or waiver from the 500-foot requirement to allow a road to be 980 feet dead end.
No, can I just, I'd like to say a few words.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. Step forward. So.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Stephen David, as Norm introduced me. So it has been a while since we've been back here. And, this particular piece of land is been interesting to develop. We've explored a lot of different things. We're trying to keep the parcel in more of its natural state. Just pick up on Mr. Hassinger's comments earlier about 40B. I'm a real estate attorney. I've been a real estate attorney for 40 years. I can't tell you how many people have approached me to buy the site from me to put a 40B in there. I'm not going to mention names. I got a recent letter of intent for 127 townhouses on this parcel. So until such time as the town, protects themselves from stuff like this, the larger parcels are going to be subject to that type of development. I really don't care to do that. I mean, I could have done that the last time I was here with the 42 lots. I could have presented a 40B and got around some of the two of the issues that were an impediment to me getting approval for that plan. I chose not to do that. I've been involved in 40Bs. I've done one in Stoughton. Here, honestly, the backland is very intriguing to me. I grew up in the city, and, so open space is something I never had. I did also take into account what would look good, and I thought if I downsized the project, kept a lot of open space in the back, it would be attractive for 10 families to live there. I understand, I've been on planning boards, zones of appeals, I'm on the Conservation Commission in Westwood. I understand boards' reluctance to give waivers because you don't want to set a precedent. And I'm very sensitive to that when I do my own rulings on the Conservation Commission. However, Norm accurately points out that you have that discretion. And the reason I came back with this plan is because I felt, if I want to get something, I should get something. And I believe I'm here tonight giving you open space, which has been naturally that it was a dairy farm way back in the day, and the dairy housing where they milk the cows is still there. So, and I'm not using the 40B argument for myself. I'm just using it so you can use it to prevent something like that from happening. So I thought it was a good trade-off. Norm put together this conceptual plan, which will ultimately be an amended plan that I'd file for approval from the board. Way back when we did the 42 houses, we were only looking for 2 waivers, and this plan was designed to minimize waivers. We haven't gone into the weeds yet on this, but my expectation is that the waiver we're going to need is the dead end waiver. And quite honestly, I've developed all over Eastern Massachusetts. 500 feet is, typically it's 1,000 to 1,500. So we don't feel we're getting beyond what's reasonable in terms of the 956 feet. And, that's why we're here. We're trying to get some feedback from you folks and to see if you have the same thinking about this parcel as I do.
All right. With that introduction,
I'd just like to point out one other thing, that each of the 10 lots would fully satisfy zoning. They each have enough frontage and acreage. They're conventional lots.
Yep. Which brings up a question in my mind is, had you looked at a flexible alternative to this?
Well, why would we need to do that?
With the reduced frontage available on a flexible development, you might be able to reduce the length of the road.
Actually, it's required. If you submit a subdivision, you have to submit both conventional and flex.
This is true.
Well,
I mean, that's fine. I understand what we're trying
But these
to
lots would have septic systems, and in order to have a 3-bedroom house, you have to have at least 30,000 square feet. So you wouldn't want to reduce to less than 30,000 square feet. So that's
Well,
that was the driver of the
right.
layout.
As Bob pointed out, the when this is submitted,
We would submit an open space option, we would.
right,
Yep.
we'd have to have that option.
I believe we meet the open space option on the amount of land we're using and what is available for open space.
Anyway, probably more to the point of the discussion tonight is the any comments the board may wish to say about the notion of a 960 or 980 foot dead end.
956, I believe.
956.
Oh, basing on prior documentation we put together for similar discussions in the past, I think Dave did the document I'm looking at, I believe, but we have, I think it's 13 things that are greater than 500 that he identified in Grafton that are also less than what your road is, but then there's also another, if I'm doing my math out here, like 12 or 13 that are actually larger. Just to, say that we have in the past at some point have been built in Grafton. Doesn't mean that our board has approved them since the regulation was in place, but that was the thing. And I think knowing what was proposed in the past and seeing what you're proposing now, I at least personally would lean toward being comfortable with that as a waiver for the open space in what you have.
Did you say, Bob? Did you say uncomfortable?
I am comfortable.
You are. Yeah.
The
most of the longer roads are way back. That's been part of the discussions. The point of the flex is that you could lay out something quite possibly that would have a shorter road, because the frontages are different. You might still arrange it so that you get 30,000 square feet in each, the 30,000 feet that you can use for septic, however that works, without so much road. The other thing, though, is that we've been hearing an awful lot lately about the need for more and more housing and more affordable, state of Massachusetts type affordable housing. And those kind of change the balance a little bit. And is there any possibility of, with 10, that one of them is affordable under the state?
Well, I can certainly guarantee there'll be more affordable than the Pulte homes. But so the intent here is not to build large homes. The intent here is to build homes that are below. I mean, Grafton has had, just like every other town, has had a significant increase in the cost of housing. I'm looking at 2,000 square foot houses that families can come in and afford and live in the town, rather than larger homes.
That would be a bit of an outlier. Most of the homes built in Grafton over the last 20 years have been 2,500 and 3,000 and more square feet.
No, I understand that, but I'm not looking.
It's an interesting observation that you're looking at something.
Yeah, so it's from my perspective as a developer, it's a financial thing, right? So I've managed to acquire rights to this property at a value of I've had those rights for a while. So since that time, things have gone up. I'm not looking to compete with Pulte. I'm looking to come in, build a nice subdivision like I have for the last 30 years, and have people be able to live here. Pandemic changed a lot of things. This project's gone through the pandemic. It's not a big requirement to be as close and proximate to bigger metropolitan areas anymore. So I know there's a huge demand for people that's somewhat limited to income, and that's what I'm looking to do here, and the rest of it, speaks for itself, open space.
But at that level, then you should be closer to being able, the income for to qualify for the affordable house you're closer to it than those big 3,000-4,000 square foot development.
There's no doubt.
So
I'm not looking to commit to an affordable unit. I mean, that's
Okay.
tantamount to a 40B type thing. And
Let me explain.
I don't want to do it.
You're gonna put us further behind on our quotas that the state requires for affordable.
I understand that.
And I'm no longer interested in that anytime that we're struggling enough to get up to and stay at the state requirement to protect from 40B, and have some control over our town. I don't, you need to find ways to this waiver is a big deal for me.
Well, and that's why I'm here tonight. That's why I'm here today, Mr. Hassinger. I'm trying to figure out what's a big deal for the town, so I can bring a compatible project.
Right.
I don't want to come back and get a negative vote. I want to come back and get an approval. So I appreciate your observation, and I appreciate the strength of it. So it'll be a consideration that I'll take seriously.
Could I ask a question? I could do an open space subdivision, maybe get the road down to 500 feet, still get 10 large lots, because they'll just bring the tails down to each lot. But in order to get 10 open space lots, don't I need to show that I can get 10 conventional lots?
Yeah.
So in order to convince you that I had 10 legal conventional lots, we would need that 500-foot waiver. But then we could approve the open space project, which would be a road less than 500 feet. Is that a possibility? So I wouldn't need a waiver for the approved plan would be less than 500 feet.
There might be something there.
I think what I'm hearing is
possible.
I'm sorry. Oh, are you done, Ms. Hatcher? Yeah, I think I got the message. So I think we have enough, unless other members would like to comment, because I will take what I've heard this evening and speak with Norm and come back. We're gonna file. I mean, we're gonna amend our filings.
Yeah, I think as a technicality, the baseline lot count for a flexible development plan is based on the lots that could be developed on a conventional design without any waivers.
Waivers, I understand.
So that would basically put something like what you've shown us as, that wouldn't work as a baseline because it requires the length waiver. I can't say for sure how the board would view that in a case like this, but with some potential advantages to doing a flex. There might be some considerations there. I'm not sure. I'll also point out that in the 12 years I've been on the board, we've granted waivers to the 500 feet, but never up to a level of 900 feet. There was one subdivision where I think we granted a waiver up to around 750 feet. In that case, beyond the end of the 750 feet, there was a common driveway serving 2 or 3 lots. So they sort of worked around it, required a waiver that the board was more comfortable with, as opposed to a waiver that was nearly double the 500 feet. So I think we had some flexibility there in the design. And Bob is waving his hand.
Yeah. Another little bit of, I don't remember the exact numbers, but if you read the flex rules, there's a provision for bonus. You might, I don't know how much bonus we'd be talking about here, but like if you could get a bonus of 1 lot, then your conventional could be 9, and you'd have a flex of 9, and then be able to get the bonus. I think it works that way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think with a little bit of, careful reading of the regulations and, careful arrangement of designs and taking the flux density bonus into consideration, seems like there's a possibility that something along these lines could be made to work. I know the devil is always in the details,
Always.
and the board can't make, the board obviously can't commit to.
I wasn't asking
waiver,
for
but
that.
you're
This is
looking for
exactly
some
what.
sense from the board of what, what kinds of things we'll be looking for.
It was very helpful, Mr. Chairman. That's exactly why we're here. We didn't want to come in.
There are several hands waving, Prabhu and Linda and then Bob.
No, I was pointing to her.
I have an observation first. Before that, I have a question. There are 10 residential units. What about the industrial lot? What is the purpose? Do we have an idea for that? And is it the same access for that industrial lot?
Well, the industrial lot would just remain an industrial lot. Residential development isn't permitted in an industrial lot in Grafton.
Right. What is it being used for? I don't know. I live very close here.
It houses the former structures that operated a dairy farm many, many moons ago. It's not being used for anything.
Yeah, it's not currently in use for anything. Yeah, that was
That's
Arthur
correct.
Mirando's dairy farm.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
There's
So is
another.
the intent again?
We got the tractor going, but
But you're not proposing any actual use of that farm,
No,
farmland
no,
right now.
no.
It will be accessed off the cul-de-sac, though.
Yes, but again, it's not residential. It's industrial.
Prabhu,
Right.
Oh,
Sorry, Bob. I just need this clarification. Is there a potential plan, or is there a plan for the industrial lot to be used for industrial purposes, accessing the same cul-de-sac at some point of time in future, or is there a separate access?
I don't think you can do that.
There's nothing right now. Nothing.
There's nothing planned for it. I haven't even thought about it, actually.
Yeah, you're not. I believe you're not allowed to have a more intense use access through a less intense use. In other words, industrial can't go through residential. But it is an interesting thought to think about. That industrial zoning is the last remnant of zoning that was industrial, I think, all the way down to Depot Street. There was a strip, most all of the way down there when I went on the board. And over the years, it's been chewed off and rezoned, and houses have gotten into a good part of that. I think when the 86 zoning was done, that they thought that looked in those days like a place that would be good for industrial. Apparently, it's not going to work out as industrial. It was on the railroad, among other things. Yeah. So there is, a possibility of thinking about the zoning and whether something might be done. That would be a little bigger story, but if the right conditions were met, you might be able to have something more creative, more extensive.
Yeah, Linda, you had your hand up.
Linda, I have a question.
It really wasn't a big issue. I was going to point out that if they need clarification on things like what our zoning bylaws actually say, or, the planning department is pretty helpful. And you don't have to wait to come in front of us even to get some clarification.
No, but I know what he's doing.
It's okay.
And he said he's getting what he wanted to hear. Well, maybe not what he wanted to hear, but he's getting what he came to hear about.
All right.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Hassinger. We'll Chris has been very helpful.
Dave, I had one other question.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. So the reason I go back to this industrial lot is I guess that's about 22 acres. I'm personally not comfortable with this 980 feet length, but if there is substantial benefit, something similar to what we have, I guess it's the Riverview Apartments, wherein at the end of the Riverview Apartments, there is a playground, there's a recreation facility out there. I don't know if that's even a feasible option. Is that something you may want to think about? that will be a big benefit. We don't have enough recreation facilities in town for the kids.
It's a little hilly back there, but that's worth thinking about.
There's soccer fields down here, ball fields down here, you know. That'd be another, benefit to the town. It's nice and flat down here. And this is on the side of a hill, but down here is all pretty flat.
Interesting
Hills are good for
thought.
sledding.
Put 2 or 3 soccer fields down there, you know.
Yeah, well, take a look at that too.
Get us a cricket field also. 4 acres is all we need.
We lost a soccer field up at the other end of town not long ago, or 2 maybe.
Yep. Okay, anything else, any other comments from the board? Any other thoughts? You guys think you have enough to go back? and
Yes,
do
thank you,
do
Mr.
some
Chairman.
More design work?
Yes, thank you very much.
I
Chris.
just, 2 minor things just to call to attention. I think I've discussed it with the applicant, but there was on the plans, as shown, that there would be a requirement for a special permit for a common driveway, accessing 3 of the lots, lot 3, 4,
Yep.
and 5. There's also a provision in the subdivision rules and regs that a dead-end street needs to show an easement to extend beyond to another lot. I think in this case, the wetlands and the railroad behind, the board has also granted waivers for that in the past, but that should be shown on the plans and request that waiver
Yeah,
with the final.
Right, and just to be clear on that particular point, we, in our recent revision of the subdivision rules and regulations, we tried to more explicitly acknowledge cases where that easement to an adjacent lot would not make any sense. We don't require an easement when there's no reasonable possibility of it ever being used.
That's I understood. Thank you, Chris. Thanks again, everyone.
All right. Good night. Thanks for your time.
Good night, thank you. And thank you for your patience sitting through everything else we had to do tonight.
Oh, I know.
Alrighty. Moving on. We have one other discussion item, and that is the video that Bob called our attention to regarding some differences between U.S. and European zoning. I watched through it. It was quite interesting. Not all of it is obviously applicable to Grafton, but it was nevertheless interesting, and it's on here as a discussion item in case anybody wanted to discuss it further or discuss what might be relevant in it for Grafton.
Well, it starts off with, we all know what zoning is, and except that there are whole different ideas about it, way beyond anything that most of us ever realize. I've heard in Texas that they don't really have the kind of dividing up into uses that we do. You can have an amusement park next to a residential house without any without anything special. The rules do vary a whole lot. The idea, open up our thinking. We have people that want a lot of changes in zoning, even people who want just getting rid of zoning so that we can have more houses. And we should be open, and we should open up our thinking as much as we can.
Yep. Yeah, I thought if nothing else, what I took away from that is something to keep in mind as we work through our master plan and we consider how we might want Grafton to develop and evolve in the future, as opposed to the way it has been evolved. If we want to see some changes in how Grafton evolves and develops, some of the ideas in this video may be worth keeping in mind. Anything else on that topic?
Yeah, I think I just want to mention one of the things that I found interesting from a broad standpoint of that, and it was talking about all the different zones, but it really looked at what I saw from some of the European models was a really more simplified version where in terms of those subzones, I think the American zoning has really kind of split out and made all of these different kind of areas and different flavors for everything. And sometimes that if you do a lot of zoning that that might come more easily to some, but it can be harder to understand when you're not embedded in it every day. And I think sometimes simplifying the regulations or simplifying some of the zoning in that way might be beneficial. I don't, we'd have to look at the context of Grafton certainly, but there might be opportunity for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the topics that I've been sort of thinking about and trying to keep in mind as I think about where we might want to go with the master plan is, if we want to see the patterns of development change, what are the tools we have available to incentivize the kind of zoning or the kind of development we would like to see? And so alternative approaches to zoning that's part of that tool set. So something to food for thought and something to not forget about. If there's nothing else on that, then we can move on to general business. We have bills. I think some bills to be approved.
Move that we approve and pay the bills.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Bob.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Justin.
Aye.
Prabhu.
Aye.
Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. We have minutes of a previous meeting, of our previous meeting, May 2nd.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
With any changes as discussed.
Yes, I saw exactly one, I think it was a typo in item 2A. The word is instilled, and I think it was intended to be installed. So with that, any other discussion? Hearing none. Justin.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Prabhu.
Aye.
Aye.
Dave votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. Staff report.
So we're moving along with the master plan. I'm setting up a meeting with CMRPC to discuss kind of the next steps and kind of formalize the process moving forward sometime this week. I also met with representatives of CMRPC for our Complete Streets, a very preliminary kind of staff level kickoff meeting. So there will be, we kind of set the agenda for that. A couple items to look at in terms of timeline. There may be opportunity in terms of the timeline to get through the process fairly quickly. Looking at an August approval of the prioritization plan. I think that's a very quick timeline, but I think it is something that could be achieved. What that would do is that would set us up for applying for the October Tier 3 grant round. So I'm going to be working with DPW to see if that's a timeline, if we have a project lined up that would benefit from that. If not, we can kind of relax that timeline and take a little bit more time to get it done. But certainly if there's projects in the pipeline, which I believe there will be, we might want to kind of push through that very quickly. So we'll be doing a lot of complete streets. Yeah. We'll be doing a lot of complete streets work if that's the case. I'll be bugging you guys in and out. So, but yeah. So those are the main items that we have going on currently. Yep.
Haven't heard anything for a while on the local rapid recovery program.
Yes.
What's the latest on that, if there is any latest?
Yeah. So we've been doing a little bit of kind of background work. Economic development side. So John Allen has been looking at that and chipping away at some of the pieces. And so we're continuing to do that. And we'll likely be picking up more pace with that, as well as for the implementation steps. It's just challenging, even though the grants are identified. We gotta find the bandwidth to get it done, and also the local champions to push through with that. But again, I think that local rapid recovery plan worked really well and provided a great asset for that area. And one of the things that I was kind of suggesting is that we might want to repeat that process for other areas in town as well. And so we're going to be looking at if that's an opportunity, if we can get some funding for that to be done in the future as well, and locate some of the other areas where that would be beneficial.
Okay, and on the 244 Worcester Street appeal, at this point, I assume we are waiting for word from town council as to when we need to meet, presumably in executive session, to discuss
Correct.
potential
Yeah.
strategy
So
going forward.
there's a procedural meeting that'll be happening tomorrow in that, and I'll be discussing the outcome of that on Wednesday with her. So I imagine we'll likely set up an executive session to discuss that, or a meeting with her to discuss that.
Whenever we have something
Right,
that
as
needs to be
applicable.
discussed.
Correct.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I think there was we see some discussion of that on social media, and I'm sure that we are all aware that we need to be somewhat careful in what we say about it, and that
It's best to say basically nothing.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I misspoke. So that was in regards to the Brossie appeal.
Oh, the Brossie.
That the meeting is tomorrow, and I'll be updating on that. I don't have an update on the 244 at this time.
Right, but at some point there will be something.
Correct.
But we just have to wait.
Yeah. We should note that customarily our council asks that we not say anything about these cases. They've got enough work already once the case gets to them, basically. Well, there's more than that, but basically, until we have a conversation with our council, I think we ought to figure that we should not be talking about it. Unfortunately, be great to, transparency, all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah, it's one of those things. A mistype of a word could actually have a detrimental effect, or misspeak
Well,
something.
I'm not.
it adds complication to the whole thing.
Yep, I think since we rendered the decision, I think the only comments I've ever made have been to state facts that were already known as part of the decision.
Agreed.
So that's it. Anybody else have anything they need to ask staff at this point? Anything in correspondence caught anybody's eye?
Oh, yes. And the question is whether there's anything we can do to help.
Yeah, I don't think that our first item in correspondence really has anything that we can do as far as the board at this stage.
Yeah, it's of interest because the topic in general has been the subject of considerable discussion in other boards.
Yeah, it comes, I suspect it may come down to exactly where the limits of agricultural use are. They're broader than, sometimes they seem to be a lot broader than one might have thought. That.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
Yes, Linda. That wasn't my phone, not yours. Okay, anyway, can I move to adjourn? No, we haven't done reports yet.
Are there any reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC?
Well, the annual CMRPC meeting is coming up early June. And what was the other thing? Well, okay. Oh, well, yeah, participate in the long range regional planning effort. They're doing a lot to build a regional plan. And there's some stuff that's come around about training opportunities. Take a look at them and take advantage of them if you can.
Yep. Chris.
Thank you. That actually reminded me. I just wanted to put a plug for the Imagine 2050, which is the CMRPC report. We have surveys available at, I believe, on the website, as well as paper copies at the planning board office. And everyone who comes by, I've been pretty much putting a survey in their hand and and requiring them to take it. So very much encouraged. And then CPTC had a webinar tonight, which I did sign up. So we do. I'm hoping to be able to have the recording. I do have the presentation slides that were sent, but it was a presentation on developing master plans. So once that's available, I'll share that with the board as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but it'd be interesting. See, I've sat through two others, by different presenters on creating master plans. I might actually remember something. I think I took some notes on them, so I might actually remember some. But another, this presenter's take on it would certainly be informative.
The only thing I have on reports for town committees is the fact that many town committees are just about to be reappointed for their appointment annuals, so to speak, at an upcoming select board meeting. That if you want to join one, you can submit to the select board and
Has to be the same distance you were. Spring.
whichever committee. Like, for example, the Hassinger's dog might try if they can write well.
I think it's getting late.
Yes, I think so too.
But I don't think we need a motion to extend the meeting past 10 p.m.
No.
Are there any other items?
At least 2 votes against that,
Before the
Jay.
board.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we be adjourned. Justin,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
and Dave votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you
Fingal
all
said-
for sticking with us.